Welcome to The Gut Show. I'm your host, Erin Judge, registered dietitian and founder of Gutivate. I'm also your fellow IBS warrior. Our goal on this side of the internet is to empower those with IBS and digestive disorders to understand their gut better, to have a healthier relationship with their bodies, and to make confident choices to improve their digestive health. During this season, you can expect a conversation around a hot topic related to gut health, digestion, and IBS. As a disclaimer, I am a dietitian, but I am not your dietitian. So everything covered in this episode is meant to be educational and is purely information that you can take back to your healthcare team in order to make the best decisions for you. If you're new here and something just doesn't feel right in your gut, if your symptoms have led you to this podcast, I invite you to start by taking the quiz, What's Your Poop Personality? Your personality type will unveil what your symptoms may mean, what may be causing them, and what you can do about them. This is a free quiz and you can take it today at gutivate.com or find the direct link below in the show notes. While you're going to take the quiz, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to The Gut Show. Today, we get to talk about something super practical. And I've talked about this before, but I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into this because I think so many people are either missing out on flavor or missing out on a tool to help manage symptoms that can be highly effective. And that is all around replacing and modifying onion and garlic intake. Now, onion and garlic are incredible foods. And I want to just put that out there to begin with. These are healthy foods. Onion and garlic contain really high quality prebiotics that can't be digested by the body. So instead, they go and feed gut microbes, and they have been shown to produce beneficial gut byproducts, including butyrate, which is considered a postbiotic. It has a lot of health benefits. These are also kind of antimicrobial and have been shown to be helpful for the immune system. They can be part of like a more anti-inflammatory style diet to help really combat some of the effects of inflammation in the body. They are really incredible foods, and they also happen to be really delicious. They add a ton of flavor to food. They are a staple when it comes to building a meal and recipes. So they are incredible, and they are not considered quote unquote bad. They are not considered unhealthy, and they should not be completely feared. And in many cases, they shouldn't even be 100% eliminated. The problem with onion and garlic, and where we come kind of up against them with IBS and IBS-like conditions where we have different chronic GI symptoms, is that these are common triggers of symptoms. These can cause more symptoms through their FODMAP effect. So they're considered FODMAPs. Specifically, they are high in fructans. So FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates, meaning the body is not breaking them down. And with fructans, specifically garlic and onion, the body does not even have enzymes to break them down. So nobody is breaking these down, which is why they have that prebiotic effect. So we're not breaking them down. So these fibers go into the large intestine, non-broken down, where they feed gut microbes. This also leads to a high production of gas along with those beneficial byproducts. And it also, because of their size, leads to an osmotic effect in the colon, which is where water pulls into the colon. And that water in the colon leads to like a stretch of that, the wall of the intestine, and can also lead to more softening kind of liquid in the colon that can cause diarrhea or flush stool out. This activity of gas buildup and water pulling in also leads to an increase in sensations in the gut because of that stretching. It can lead to cramping of the intestinal muscles as they're responding. And this happens for all individuals, but those with IBS have gut-brain miscommunication that leads to what we call hypersensitivity. So those sensations in the gut responding to that excess gas and then that water coming in, this leads to the symptoms of bloating, gas production, maybe even foul gas, pain, especially, and those changes in bowel movements. For garlic and onion, a lot of times we see diarrhea. We see that with FODMAPs because of that osmotic effect, but even that buildup of gas, and some people can actually cause constipation as well, and a slowdown of what's going on in the gut and the digestive tract. So for some people, garlic and onion are not bad, but they can trigger some of these symptoms that we see. And I focus on garlic and onion today. They're not the only FODMAPs that exist. They're also not the only foods that contain fructans. We also have things like Brussels sprouts and asparagus. There are lots of different foods, even some fruits that contain fructan. Wheat contains fructan. And so we're not focusing so much on that. And I do have some resources in the show notes for you if you're looking for more information on FODMAPs and kind of understanding that. You can also join our membership if you want guidance through the low FODMAP diet and you want to hit that harder. Like with the full approach, we can guide you through that, help you with that, give you resources for that. So all of that is available in the show notes. But I want to focus on garlic and onion because these are some of the most widely eaten FODMAPs, and they are highly concentrated with these FODMAPs. And many people are experiencing symptoms related to them. But because they are such a flavor staple, a lot of people find themselves stuck in how to modify them and also how to replace them in their diet to have symptom relief, but also not miss out on flavor. And one of the things that I hate hearing, and I've heard this from clients, is, well, I don't want to have like feed my family, my meals. How can anyone expect to eat without garlic and onion? My food is just so bland. Like, what's the point in even trying new recipes? Like, food can still be incredibly flavorful, and there are a lot of amazing resources available to us right now. And so I don't want you to feel like if you eliminate these, that you have to live a boring life with food and that you can't explore food because there are lots of options. So the first thing that we need to talk about is how to modify these and like where that fits in with FODMAPs, especially if you're not familiar with the low FODMAP diet and how that works. So I mentioned, these are non-digested, so they make their way to the colon where they have this effect in the body. That can happen about 4 hours after eating a meal, and then food can stay in the colon and like make its way through as it's forming stool. Then you eliminate that stool for about 24 hours. So it depends. Everyone is a bit different there, but that's on average. So these things can build up in the gut, and they also will hit the gut at different times based on the different meals that you are eating and incorporating. This is highly portion dependent in terms of when you have symptoms or not. So some people are going to be highly reactive. And if you already know that you have high levels of hypersensitivity, which we talked about in like last episode where we talked about stress. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go back, learn a little bit more about the gut brain miscommunication and hypersensitivity, and then come back here. If you are already dealing with high levels of sensitivity, then you may experience more of these symptoms with a lower amount of garlic and onion. However, if you are not as highly sensitive, you may do okay with small amounts of these foods, but having them in every single meal every day may not be the answer. And that might be where you have trouble with them. You may struggle more with one than the other, which is where FODMAP challenges come into play. And again, we guide you through that in our membership if you need that resource. But it's important to, as you're tackling this, not just eliminate and replace all of them, but also play around with how much you add. Maybe you eliminate half of what you currently eat, and then you add in some replacements to kind of round flavor out. That's an option. If you've been eliminating these for a long period of time, maybe you try out adding a little bit of each back and see what happens. Maybe in one meal a day is a great place to start, or only whenever you eat out, or just play around with it a little bit because you might have a tolerance level that allows you to incorporate some of it without incorporating it in large quantities so that you can still get symptom relief and enjoy those flavors, as well as have some flexibility with different products that you buy, which I find as someone who has IBS and onion being my biggest symptom trigger, I find that it's really freeing to be able to buy some products off the shelf or a pre-made item or go out to eat with a little bit more confidence, not feeling like I have to 100% restrict because I know where kind of my tolerance capacity lies. So that's important to think about first. Now, when we are replacing them, why is it so tricky? Because it's in a lot of foods and it's not always included on the ingredient list that you are looking at in a product, or if you are looking at a menu, they're not always going to say that they add garlic and onion to that food that you're eating. You can sometimes put pieces together if there's a sauce, or sometimes it will have like onion, especially, or roasted garlic. Those words might be included, but it's not always going to be super transparent. And so it can be tricky when eating out or buying products to know what you're looking for. And so looking for things like natural flavors, spices is typically where this is going to be found in the US, but this can vary by country. And so being kind of knowledgeable about products and what you're buying. I usually say, if it has a very savory flavor profile, it likely has garlic and or onion added. And that's just kind of a rule of thumb if you need to avoid this fully. And then if you're at a restaurant, you can always ask those questions. At a restaurant, instead of fully replacing, because you may not have as much control there, you can modify by asking for things plain, like proteins cooked plain, just cooked with salt and pepper, choosing like an oil and vinegar like only dressing versus like a pre-made dressing for a salad, or with if there is like a sauce or a dressing or something like that, asking for it on the side so that you can drizzle it yourself and kind of control the quantity that you are adding in versus like leaving it up to them and how much they add. That's one thing that you can try that can be really helpful. The same is true of like your sides with vegetables. If you can't control all the garlic and onion, you can ask for like vegetables to just be steamed and plain. And sometimes that can be helpful with eating out. I have another resource for you at the end of the episode. And so stick around for that if you want another resource for eating out that can be helpful. If you are at home, there are actually a lot of ways that we can modify garlic and onion. And a lot of times this is so simple because if we have these replacements, we can still follow a recipe or, go for one of your staple recipes that you cook on a regular basis, make a little bit of a swap and you are golden. And so I'm going to give you some of those resources now and kind of share some of the ideas that you have, and then you can decide which ones you want to use or not. Are you listening to today's episode with the main thought being, what are the steps that I can take to get rid of my symptoms right now? While I hope that the information that we share in every episode of The Gut Show leaves you feeling more empowered and more confident in your body, it's not always going to solve your problem or give you a clear direction for your specific symptoms and your needs. The Master Method membership is an online program for the person with chronic digestive symptoms and IBS who wants step-by-step guidance to understand their body, address the drivers of IBS, reduce symptoms, and build resilience in your gut long-term. This membership includes a step-by-step course and a dietitian-led community that teaches you how to holistically address each symptom and the IBS drivers, how to reduce symptoms more strategically and with confidence, and guidelines for better gut health long-term so that you're not only thinking about today, but you're also improving your outcomes in the future. It is time to ditch the symptoms and get your life back. The membership is your first step. You can learn more and enroll at ibsmastermethod.com and use the code GUTSHOW, GUTSHOW, GUTSHOW for $25 off your enrollment fee. Now, let's get back to today's episode. The first one are infused oils. With FODMAPs and fructan specifically, these are water soluble. This means that they leach out into water. And so if you are cooking them with other vegetables or you are making a broth or you add water in any way, the FODMAPs themselves are going to go into that water content. This is actually why canned products are sometimes lower FODMAP, because the FODMAPs are going into that liquid and then you rinse it off and you kind of rinse some of those FODMAPs away, which is really helpful. With garlic and onion, we don't want to do this, but because they're water soluble, that means in fat or oil, the FODMAPs themselves are not going to go into the oil. Oil and water do not mix, right? And so if you want to add the flavor of onion and garlic without the FODMAPs, you can actually add your oil to a pan, cook your garlic or onion first in the oil, remove it, and then continue cooking. That is a very basic at home infused oil hack. You can even cook the garlic and onion, move it to the side, and then you could add that back to other members of your family or friends, their dishes, if you want to add that flavor fully. But you can also just remove it and move on. And then the flavor kind of seeps into that oil without the actual FODMAPs being there. I will say, whenever I use this hack, you may use more onion and garlic than you would have to make the recipe, because again, it's going to take a lot more to give you some of that flavor that you're looking for. You can also make and batch the infused oil, and then store it in the refrigerator, because now you've cooked it. You could do that in batch and then use that oil to cook with later, or there are lots of products on the market that you can buy. FODI is a brand that has one, and they use an extra virgin olive oil, which has health benefits. This is what I use. They also have a shallot infused oil. You can make your own onion infused oil if you want. I've also found success with my local olive oil store here in Nashville. They have a garlic infused oil, as well as lots of different flavor infused oils. And so you can explore that if you want to shop local, or if you have that resource available to you, or you can just make it yourself. So very simple. And this can be avocado oil, olive oil, vegetable oil, whatever oil you want it to be, as long as there's not a water content also there, like what you would see with like butter or things like that. So that is one option, is to utilize oils and infuse your flavor so that you can still get some of that flavor without the FODMAPs. And I think that works best for garlic versus onion, but I have found success with it. So it's definitely an option. Another option is to find a flavor replacer. So there are some alternatives to garlic and onion that are actually lower FODMAP. One of those is green onion stems. This is the green part of green onions. So you often use these like raw. You may find them on top of meals for like a little embellishment, a little crunch, a little tang, kind of zesty a little bit. And then the bulb can sometimes be used in cooked, like that white part. The white part is still going to be higher FODMAP, but the green stem is not. And so this is a way not to fully replace onion, because it's not going to taste the exact same way, but it can add an extra amount of flavor. It can add some of that kind of aromatic component. I like to chop these up and cook them down. And again, I would use probably double the amount that I would use with onion, because it's going to take more to get the flavor you want. Some people have reflux with these, and so I like to cook them down myself versus raw, but you can decide how you want to use them. But that's a great option. Another great option are chives, which are also kind of green little stems. These are incredible to replace garlic a little bit. So that would be an option. Again, you could do these raw on top. You could also cook them down. That's an option. Leek leaves as well. I like these for an onion replacement, even for like texture, because they are a little bit thicker, more hearty whenever you cook them down. They don't have the exact same texture as onion, but they kind of work in a similar way, and they have a little bit of flavor added to them, which can be great. A smaller amount of celery can also be a great option. You'll see this a lot in a lot of low FODMAP products. And while larger amounts of celery are considered high FODMAP, I think it's about a fourth of a stalk that you can get and it'd be low FODMAP. And so if you're using, 2 stalks for a giant bowl of soup, or soup recipe that's going to feed, 8 or more people, then each serving is still going to be low, or like 1 stalk to feed 4 people, you're still going to get a lower amount. And these are typically going to be a little bit easier to digest. So cooking those down, again, can add a bit of a flavor base. I also love other vegetables like carrots, like cooking those down, those can add a good flavor base. But finding some vegetables that have flavor already, kind of like your aromatics, are going to be really helpful. Another option would be to use different spices and herbs, spice blends, incredible dried spices, fresh herbs can also be really great to use. And you may have to get creative, again, because the recipe that you're following may not give you a lot of options, but finding a variety of different spices and herbs can be an incredible way to add flavor and be an alternative where you're not missing out fully, even if it's not a one-to-one replacement. There are some companies that make replacements already for you, and I find these to be really successful because they're meant to replace garlic and onion. So they're tailored to be that, versus like tailored to be added on top of cooked garlic and onion that you see in a lot of different recipes and with other products. One that I think is really interesting, and this is a company called Gourmand. They also make low FODMAP broths, which is great, especially for soup season. But they make powders out of these alternatives that I mentioned and salts. So they have a green onion powder. They also have a garlic chive powder and a garlic scape powder. And I didn't mention these, but garlic scapes, I don't mention them as much just because I have a hard time finding them. They're usually available for like 1 month out of the year at a farmer's market if you can get them. But they have a garlic scape powder as well, and it's really great as an alternative. I use that a lot at home. And then they have like a salt version and of both of these. And so that's a great option if you like onion salt, garlic salt. Those are awesome. And so you could use these. I would use more of these than I would of like garlic powder or onion powder in a recipe, but they're a good replacement. There's also FODI that I mentioned earlier that has the infused oils. They have some spice blends. So there are some companies that just do like more combo spice blends. Gourmand also has a taco spice blend. FODI has one. They have a lot of different ones as well. These are really great because they incorporate different seasonings. And so if you're like, I want to make sure that the spice blend I'm choosing is garlic and onion free and also is flavorful and can like help me just make recipes much easier, then go for blends that are from low FODMAP companies. So FODI is a great option. Again, Gourmand has that taco seasoning. I use that for chili as well. And then there's also a company called Smoke Insanity. They have a ton of them. So that would be an option as well. The spa one I love for like ramen or things like that, but those can be really great. And there are companies that kind of pop up on the market all the time. There are chili oils that are popping up on the market. There's a company called Red Bloom that does that. And chili is also an incredible way to add flavor, add spice, add depth to your recipes. If you're missing out on garlic and onion, that could be an option for you. So utilize the resources that are available. And even if you're thinking about really quick, easy recipes like pasta, there are companies that make low FODMAP pasta sauces. We have that with FODI. Rouse makes a sensitive pasta sauce. Prego makes a sensitive pasta sauce without garlic and onion. Thrive Market makes one. So there are a lot of different options out there. And hopefully these companies will continue to expand so that you have some easy, quick grab and go sauces and things that you can throw together in a recipe. FODI also has like marinades and things like that, barbecue sauce, ketchup, things like that, that just make it so much easier to actually replace the garlic and onion in your recipe or in your easy go-to meals versus needing to follow a full low FODMAP recipe. When it comes to like getting more creative in the kitchen, yes, use these products. That's a good place to start. But if you are wondering, like, well, what spices, what herbs, how much, like, how do I know what to incorporate? This is where I actually love low FODMAP recipes because some of the really incredible low FODMAP recipe developers, they've done the work already of figuring out what flavor combinations work. And by following some of those recipes, you can get ideas where then you can kind of pull those ideas into your own recipes. This is what's really nice during the holiday season, where you have more traditional recipes that you like to follow, or you're just trying to modify a recipe that has been passed down to you or that you really are excited about. You can use some of the knowledge from other recipes into what now you are trying to make on your own. This is what I've always done myself. I'm not a true recipe developer myself. I am a recipe hacker, meaning I have learned from other people and I know how to like pull a recipe out from anywhere and be able to make some replacements and figure out how to make it work for me without as much of the garlic and onion. And sometimes it's just choosing how much I'm adding, but sometimes it is about, okay, what can I add in it to replace with? And what's really beautiful about that is oftentimes what we're adding in to add more flavor, kind of round out the recipe or replace the garlic and onion fully are different plants. And when we think about gut health, because one thing we miss out on with removing garlic and onion are prebiotics, but if we can add a variety of herbs, spices, other vegetables that can help give us more flavor, we're actually doing our gut microbiome a huge service. And so we're actually adding even more health and more benefit to the recipe versus just taking it away and eating something really bland. Sometimes that's what you need, but there are other options available. And that's what hopefully you work towards and you can get to, which is going to be really beneficial for your gut health long term, and even just your quality of life with knowing that you are creating flavors, that you are, adding different things that are fun and interesting to your meals. Like it can make such a big difference. Another option when we think about adjusting our diet and reducing symptoms related to garlic and onion would be to try to break them down and utilize an enzyme. So, this is where, and none of this episode is sponsored. I know I'm talking about a lot of companies and brands, and we intentionally did not bring on sponsors for this reason. I wanted to just be able to talk about all of them freely. So, there's that. There are some affiliate codes in the show notes for some of these companies. I make a commission, you get a discount. That's, as transparent as I can be there, but I'm not paid by these companies to say any of this right now. But I do want you to have these resources. And one of them is an enzyme that has been created to break down garlic and onion, or at least the fructan in garlic and onion. And that is FODZyme. So with this, like I mentioned before, right, the fructan in garlic and onion doesn't break down, goes to the colon intact, causes problems. So the thought by the creators of FODZyme is, what if we could break this compound and this carbohydrate apart so that it doesn't go into the colon as fructan? Because these are different molecules. So if we can break these molecules apart, like enzymes would do if we had the enzymes, would that be beneficial? And what they found is that they could add what's called fructan hydrolase, which hydrolyzes or breaks apart the fructan molecule so that there's fructose kind of pulled out from it. This reduces fructan in the colon, which reduces symptoms. So instead of avoiding garlic and onion, you can add this enzyme directly to the meal. It's a powder, you just add it on, and it breaks this down for you to then reduce the load in your gut. This has been such a game changer when it comes to FODMAPs and especially garlic and onion substitutions for people, especially me, because again, onion is still a huge trigger for me in large amounts. It causes symptoms, especially bloating, distension, gas pain, all of that. And I love eating out. I love to travel. I love to cook. I love convenience. I love flexibility. That's a huge part of my life. If you have followed me at all, I'm traveling almost once a month. I'm eating out a lot. I'm going to concerts. I'm going to sports games, and like I'm eating at these places. That's part of my life and what brings me a lot of joy. And FODZyme has been such a game changer for me, and has been a game changer for clients. All these products, same, like at home, I use these, but whenever I eat out, this has been a game changer and allows me to have more freedom. And so that's another option too. And yes, these things cost money. You don't have to do that. You can modify at the restaurant. Again, we've talked about some of the options, but if you do have some flexibility in your budget, these can be ways to, like, again, expand your life and make things a lot easier. I once had a client who told me we were talking about how FODZyme specifically worked for him, lactate for lactose worked for him. And we found these options, and they were working really well, and he was still really resistant to using them. And we kind of dug into it a little bit, and he was like, well, I don't really want to rely on it. And it was almost like this prideful, like, I want my body to be able to function without these substitutions or these different resources, which I understand and have empathy for. I also want my body to be able to do that. The reality for many of us is that our bodies are not going to. And you can build up some tolerance to garlic and onion, but for some people, you're not going to build it up 100%. I'm likely never going to be able to tolerate onion or lactose. Like that is just true because I have built up a lot of health in my gut and resilience in other areas. But here I am. These things still trigger symptoms for me. And that's true for a lot of people. It does not make you weaker or less than to use resources available to you. It is okay. It's okay. And sometimes that's what gives you freedom. And truly, who cares? Besides you, like the only person that matters is you. And if you're eating out, you're having fun, you're experiencing things because you have resources across the board, that's all that matters. And you are not less than, you are not weak, whatever, you're not doing harm with these things. And so that's really important to remember. So our big takeaways, if you have to reduce garlic and onion, there's lots of options available to you. I encourage you to give them a try. I know it can be overwhelming. And if it does feel overwhelming, just focus on one meal at a time, because the truth is, this is all about overload. And if you reduce even some garlic and onion, if you think that they're triggering your symptoms, you may see some results without reducing all of it or completely eliminating it. So even maybe reducing it at breakfast or reducing it at lunch, some meals that you have some more control over, you may see the results that you need. And that may be all that you need to do to get that relief and give your gut some of that, a little bit of, you know, just like less overload, right? That's all I can say. So hopefully this helps, gives you some ideas. And again, don't go fully into a low FODMAP diet alone. If you're even listening to this and you're like, I'm really overwhelmed, you do not have to do this by yourself. Like, we are here to help. We have one-to-one programs that are available. We have spots for one-to-one clients if you need someone holding your hand, kind of giving you guidance individualized and in a one-to-one way. We also have our membership, which again goes through all of this and gives you tools for what to do beyond the low FODMAP diet, how to hopefully avoid this completely, how to build that resilience in your gut, how to increase tolerance to foods, but also resources for the low FODMAP diet if you want that. So dig into the show notes. There's lots of free resources and those program resources for you if you need them. And cheers to delicious, wonderful meals that don't cause symptoms.